Okay guys, so I finally have some time in the studio by myself. I've been saving this straight edge bowl for about 2 weeks now to trim it so that I can trim it for you in a video. So let's see if we can do this before anyone walks in. Okay, so you may go back to my old video and take a look. This is a straight edge bowl, and I left quite a bit of clay on the bottom so that I had the ability to really get a great foot on this. Now, where does my foot go? This is a huge mistake that a lot of people make, or learning error. Your foot should go where the wall hits the floor. So if it's something round, you want to get it right where that curve happens, whereas this is more of a cylinder bottom. So my foot's going to go right about there. I don't want there to be a straight edge on the bottom, so I'm going to make a mark there. The inside of my foot is always going to be about 1/2 inch. I make it a little bigger, 3/4 inch, because we're going to talk about how I bevel the foot. And then I know that it starts to get thick right about here. Now, a lot of people center in all sorts of ways when they're trimming. This goes over the bat pin, so I'm okay. I don't use a bat because I want that clay to stick to the metal or whatever material the wheel head is, whereas a wooden bat, the clay would start to dry out and loosen up a lot easier. I'm going to use the circles on my wheel head first. Now, if your pot isn't round, you've got to do a little bit of extra sort of finessing in order to get this done. So what I do is a little different than other people. Other people kind of do this tap thing where they tap it over. That's difficult to me. Some people will go ahead and make the wheel move, and if it hits wherever it hits, they'll move it. But if you're a little oval, it's going to hit in 2 spots, and that's not going to help you. So I draw circles on the top of my, on the bottom of my bowl, which is the top right now, just like a record player. And wherever that circle is how I'm going to move. It's a little hard to see from the angle that you are at, but I'm going to see if I can pull it off for you. So my wheel's going relatively quick, and I draw a circle on top. You can see that that circle is not quite in the middle. So I'm going to move the entire pot away from the shorter edge. That's the shorter edge. I'm going to move it this way. Now I'm going to draw another circle, and this time I'm going to do it in the center. I don't want to confuse all my circles. And then I'm going to measure with my pin tool where that is. So you can see that my second circle is a little closer to where it needs to be. If I measure to the edge, remember you want to use your wood tool really clean. And I can feel that my finger is sort of touching. Here it might be a little farther, so I may want to move it a little this way. Now remember, we want to center to the bottom of our pot, not to over here. Nobody really goes ahead and looks at your pot from the side, but they always look at the bottom. And they look at the bottom so they can see how much it costs, what the name of the artist is. And if you center your pot to the body of the pot, your foot's going to be a little to the left or a little to the right if it wasn't round to begin with. And people are going to notice it when they flip it upside down. So it's super important. I'm taking my, what I call trimming clay. We actually provide it in our studio. It's just kind of crappy pugged clay. And I'm going to attach my pot to the wheel. Now I want you guys to see how I do this. I take a big lug of clay and I wrap it around like that. And I'm going to take my thumb and I'm going to push straight down. By pushing straight down, I'm not pushing into the pot in case the pot's a little wet, although I like to trim when I'm about a cheap leather, like a Tom McCann leather or Doc Martin leather. Not a cheap leather, but a stiffer leather. But what I'm creating is clamps. So I don't care about going all the way around, but I care that this is stuck to here really well and that this is lifted up above. The taller the pot, the thicker your clamps need to be. Think about a graduated cylinder compared to the Eiffel Tower. Go ahead and visualize that for a bit. All right, so the first thing I want to do is I want to draw where my foot's going to go. And again, I made that mark to begin with, but I just want to really reinforce it. Now what I'm going to do is draw what I'm going to get rid of. Now, I don't have to do this for myself, but when I'm teaching, I tend to sort of shade the part that I'm taking off so that my students can see what I'm doing. So you can see what I've done right there. I'm going to be getting rid of this and this. I'm a little off here. I'm going to fix that. So this is going to go away and this is going to go away. And this is going to stay exactly the way it is. I am not going to trim that at all. So first I'm gonna do is get rid of this big chunk, and I wanna make almost like a 45-degree angle. Now, because I have all these little extra pieces, I don't wanna just drag. I wanna make the wheel go about 75% of full speed, and I wanna hold my tool as still as possible. My elbows are pulling into my back. If I don't pull my elbows back, it may take me, and then that's gonna just mess everything up. Hands are attached over here. This hand is on top firmly. And I just wanna hold the tool in one spot. What I'm gonna hear is, that's gonna be taking off those sort of imperfect spots that maybe you didn't get with the wood tool. And then eventually I can start to drag. Now, how much pressure do I use? I use a lot of pressure. This is a white knuckle right here. So I'm white knuckling it. And I'm waiting for full revolutions. I'm pushing hard. My right elbow is pushing up against the top of my right thigh. I'm just gonna get over here, so I'm gonna flip the tool. And what I'm aiming for is sort of this just straight edge. Now, without my splash pen, I'm making a bit of a mess. I'm just sort of going up like that. I don't want to trim the body of my pot as much, because you're supposed to throw that part well. All right, so what I've done just now is I've allowed myself a space here so that I can go in with my small loop tool and kind of get that right angle. I want you guys to notice my choice of tool. This is just your basic large loop tool that comes with a set. What's super important to notice is that the top of it is round. Some of the sets come with a straight one. That will often cause chatter. I've yet to find a high quality rounded big loop tool. A lot of them tend to be straight, or you just buy the round ones. So I go with the cheap one. This is an Amazon or an Alibaba or whatever, but it's the only one I really can get, that round one. So now what I want to do is create that foot on the right angle here. So I use the square part of the other cheap trimming tool. I'm gonna have my pinky touching the pot. My index finger on my left hand is gonna be right up against the edge so that I don't wiggle. Wheel moving fast, right elbow on my hip, on my leg of my thigh, and I'm just gonna go straight down. Now, I do a workshop called To Foot or Not to Foot. If you do not have the ability to have a 1/4 of an inch to a 1/2 inch foot, don't bother doing a foot. The foot doesn't serve a purpose if it doesn't lift your pot, thin out your pot, or give you a safety glaze zone. So choose not to foot unless you know you have enough space to foot. So I'm gonna hold this here and just kind of clean up the side of it a little. And that's sort of the foot I'm looking for. I'm actually gonna aim for one that's a little taller. It's about 3/4 of an inch. And now I know that the inside of my pot does not have this sharp edge here, so I'm gonna take the round side of my cheap trimming tool, pinky attached. I'm just gonna start to sort of get rid of more of that excess clay that I left behind. My hand is pushing down on the top, especially those who are afraid that it's gonna come flying off. If you push down, they do have that cool spinny tool that sits on the top and it spins with you like a little mini Lazy Susan. Go ahead and use it if that bothers you. So now I want to clean that up, or if the texture bothers you. Oop, little weird noise there. Get myself a real nice angle here. Going with the corner of that cheap big loop tool. I kind of get my head all the way to the side here. Got a little bit of a lump there that I don't love. Go in and finesse that. Now people ask which side. You know, I flip it when necessary. Sometimes when I have it this way, can't get this angle. When I flip it this way, I can get this angle. It's really something you'll just learn without me having to tell you. You'll see what logically makes sense. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to get that inside. So I go back with the corner of this tool. Again, eventually I'm going to get a second camera so I could do the above, but always limited time. I'm going to use the corner of that tool, and I'm not going to go all the way deep down yet because I just want to sort of break the skin, especially since this has been sitting for 2 weeks. It's got like a dry skin on the top, and if I try and go straight, it's probably going to sort of flip around. So I go to a little bit of an angle, start to drive it in. Now I know how much clay I left because when I first started throwing, I said to myself, I'm going to put a real good foot on this. So I know that I left at least a 1/2 inch, if not 3/4. of an inch of clay down on that bottom there so that I know that I have room. So I decided the minute I just opened up my pot that this was gonna be a pot with a foot on it. Tina, I'm just gonna finish a video really quick, okay? So I'm not ignoring you. Okay, cool. Okay. So you can see what I've got going on there. I've gone in deep enough. If I was to take this loop of clay off, this should be a continuous shape. So keep that in mind as you start to get better. Now what I want to do next is I want to bevel this inside here, and I want to bevel this. Sharp, pointy corners always chip. Think about your 1970s glass coffee table. If you didn't have a beveled edge, it definitely chipped. Mine personally had a little bit of a hole in it because a golf club hit it when I was a kid, but I digress. So let's go back. So I'm gonna bevel this a little bit, and I'm gonna bevel the outside. The reason I'm beveling the inside is because if I choose to wax the inside here, it's gonna be a lot easier to wax something at an angle than something that's at a right angle. So let's get going on there. So I use the square side, and this is why I leave my foot a little wider. When I bevel, I tend to lose a little bit of the floor. And then I'm just gonna bevel the edge here. So I left it about 3/4 of an inch when in the end I want it to be a 1/2 inch. And then what I do is I never, ever, ever, ever trim this part of my pot. If I sat here and I tried really hard to keep it as straight as possible, chances are I'm just gonna go up and down with it. What that's gonna do is it's just not gonna be straight. So I rely on that wire tool when I wired my pot to be the base of the pot for its life. If I've got some extra caca or something, I'll go in with my finger and just sort of smooth it out. I don't use a sponge, sort of anti-sponge, because if you use a sponge, you're probably gonna wipe away the clay and leave the grog. Notice how the insides of your bowls tend to be a little groggy. That is because your grog doesn't shrink as much as your clay. So when you're wiping it away with a sponge, you're wiping away clay and leaving grog. But again, that's for another video. Now, if I have a lot of extra stuff, this is something that I might sand later. I have a great $36 diamond core sanding pad. Use the finest one when it's bone dry and just sort of smooth that out a little bit. But I don't ever really, I try really hard not to trim this on top. I find that you're just never gonna get it straight. So now I'm just gonna go side eye here, side of my head, and look at the profile. See if I've got myself those straight lines that I know exist on the inside. A little bit more here. Sometimes I'll even have my foot sort of bevel out a little, but I'm gonna leave that for this. Go in here. I'm gonna show you guys what I mean by beveling the inside of my foot. So you can see that I've got a little bit of an angle here, and what that angle is gonna do, it's gonna allow me to get a brush in there a lot easier. Okay, so you can also go by sound. Should sound pretty similar all the way through. Nope, there's that noise. Just gonna get a little bit more off. Okay, so I'm gonna gently peel these away. Carefully pick up my pot. Look at that quality foot there that I was able to pick it up. So by having a quality foot, that's also going to let me dip my lip if I want to. And I'm just going to sort of examine what's going on here. So I think I have my foot exactly where I want it. It lifts the pot up. It's evenly, consistently thick all the way through here. I've got my little finger lines and the big substantial foot. If I take the ring off, this will continuously continuously run into here, which is, that's what your pot is. It's supposed to be a continuous shape with a pedestal added on. And that's pretty much it. There you go. All right, guys. So go ahead and leave some comments, ask me some questions, and maybe we'll show you the final one, how we glaze this later, but that may take another few months. Have a great day, guys.